In 2007, Sheffield United were relegated from the Premier League after being beaten at home by relegation rivals Wigan Athletic. Wigan took all 3 points at Bramall Lane, which guaranteed their survival, and with West Ham picking up 3 unlikely points away to Manchester United, that meant the Blades were relegated. So if you were wondering who the players were and where they went after that heartbreak end to the season, well, you've clicked the right video. So we start off with Paddy Kenny. Paddy stayed with the Blades for another 3 years after the Premier League relegation season, and in the 2008-2009 season the Blades finished third but lost out to Burnley in the playoff final, but there were a few more controversial moments that followed. During close season, the Blades found out that Paddy had failed a drugs test that was administered just before the playoff final. He was banned from football for 9 months, returning for the last game of the season, and then moved to Neil Warnock's QPR the season after. Lots of fans to this day still have a hatred for Paddy, but he insists his move wasn't for money, but was more for the dislike of Kevin Blackwell. Paddy spent 2 years at Loftus Road as Neil Warnock's number 1 goalkeeper, before being ousted by new manager Mark Hughes. However, Paddy was involved in arguably the most iconic moment in Premier League history by conceding the Aguero goal. That goal won Manchester City their first ever Premier League title. He then played 76 times for Leeds United before signing for Bolton, Ipswich, Bury, Rotherham, Northampton without making 1 appearance. Since then, Paddy has signed for local team Maltby Main in the Northern Counties East League Premier Division, but could only last 11 minutes before being substituted due to an injury. You could say Paddy had a bit of an interesting football career after leaving the Blades. Phil Jagielka. Jags didn't actually ever become a championship player after being relegated that season, as Everton snapped him up for £4 million, which became the Blades' highest transfer fee received at the time. He went on to have an excellent Everton career, making 322 appearances, scoring 14 goals in 12 years. He also made 40 appearances for England and played in the 2014 World Cup finals. In 2019, after the Blades were promoted to the Premier League and Jags was surplus to requirements at Everton, he returned home and cemented himself as a 2-club man. He hasn't started a league game for the Blades yet, but looks like he's being used as a mentor to the younger players and looks like he could join the coaching staff in the future. Chris Morgan. On to another 2-club man, and Morgs was a true legend and Mr. Sheffield United for me. After relegation, Morgs continued to marshal the Blades' defence and captained the team to the playoff final, but in 2010 he suffered a career-ending knee injury, which would sideline him for the rest of the season after, and ultimately ending his footballing career. During his injury and after his retirement, Morgs took charge of various Blades youth teams and led the Blades reserves to the Central League title. Morgs was given the job of caretaker manager at the end of the 2012-2013 season due to Danny Wilson's departure. Having been overlooked twice for the first team manager's role in 2015, Morgs left to join Danny Wilson at Chesterfield and then Michael Brown at Port Vale. But he didn't last long at either clubs. He's been seen around the club on many occasions as a Bramall Lane visitor and is still regarded as a club legend. Matt Kilgallen. Matt Kilgallen, or Killer as the Blades faithful called him, was relatively new to the team after joining in January and only making 6 appearances in the Premier League. His Blades career didn't get off to the best of starts, but after the Blades were relegated, he became one of the first names on the team sheet. Killer made over 100 appearances in a Blades shirt before being sold to Premier League Sunderland. In 3 years, he only managed to play 23 games and was loaned out to Borough and Doncaster in that time. He then moved on to Blackburn, playing 57 times, and then Bradford respectively. Even though he picked up Bradford City's Player of the Year in 2018, his contract was cancelled by mutual consent, and he moved to Scotland's Hamilton Academicals, but only stayed for 1 season as he signed for Indian side Hyderabad this summer. Now, I'm not saying he's moved to a bad team, but come on, it's right there in the name. Derrick Geary. Now, Del Boy had a funny old career, born in Dublin and started his career at Sheffield Wednesday. Now, if you're going to move away from your family and friends, why would you want to go and play for Wednesday? But all joking aside, Dell spent 7 years at Wednesday, playing 121 times, but a spell of injuries hampered his early career, so much that he was sold to Stockport in 2004. He only played 13 times for the Hatters before being picked up by United. After the Premier League season, Dell only featured again for another couple of seasons due to a serious knee injury. Since retiring, Dell has worked in football and in 2016 took over as lead coach of Sheffield United's under-18s youth team. And he's still there to this day. Keith Gillespie. Unlike Derrick Geary, I won't be going through Keith Gillespie's full career as he's played for a lot of clubs. Okay, I will. He's played for Man United, Wigan, Newcastle United, Blackburn Rovers, Wigan again, Leicester, then the Blades. And this is where we'll pick it up from. He stayed another 2 seasons after relegation and notched up a total of 97 appearances and only 4 goals. But one of them was an absolute banger. But during his time in Sheffield, he went on loan to Charlton before moving on to Bradford for a 3-game stint. Keith then randomly moved back home to sign for Glentoran in the NIFL League. And that's in Northern Ireland for those who don't know. He played 33 games, scoring 2 goals, but only lasted 1 season before returning to England. He had a short spell at Darlington before plying his trade in the other island for Longford Town in the League of Ireland First Division. But at the age of 38, his long and successful playing career came to an end after more than 250 Premier League appearances and 86 international caps. Nick Montgomery, a fan's favourite now, who started his career at the Blades and probably would have ended his career at Bramall Lane too if it wasn't for relegations and the changing of managers. But in 2012, after 12 years at the Lane, Monty went on loan to Millwall. He only managed 2 games in his loan spell before coming back to the Lane to be sold to Central Coast Mariners in Australia. The Blades already had an affiliation with the Mariners, and Monty was more than happy to move his family and footballing career to a slightly warmer climate, and he's been there ever since. He played 116 times for the Mariners before moving on in 2017 to Wollongong Wolves, who are an Australian semi-professional team. However, he was seen at the Blades vs Arsenal game recently, so maybe a return to England could be on the cards. But I would probably think in a coaching sense. Michael Tong. Similar to Monty, Tongi was also seen at the Arsenal game. However, Tongi has never ventured outside the UK to play his football, probably due to his skin complexion. Not that I can say much. Tongi was another one that started his career at Bramall Lane, but started it with an absolute bang, as not long after forcing his way into the first team, he scored 2 very good goals in the League Cup at Bramall Lane against Liverpool, and that put him on the map. Tongi also had a very good season in the Premier League and was the scorer of one of the goals of the season against West Ham. He played 262 times for the Blades, scoring 21 goals, but was bought by Stoke for $2 million in 2008. He didn't feature much for Stoke in the 5 years at the club, but did feature out on loan for Preston, Derby, Preston again, Barnsley and then finally Leeds, with his old manager Neil Warnock taking a punt on him permanently. After Leeds United, his career steadily declined, and after Port Vale's new manager John Askey didn't offer Tongi a new deal, it looks like his career could be over. Stephen Quinn. Quinn has had an interesting sort of career. He broke into the Blades team during the season in the Premier League, scoring an excellent free kick against Portsmouth David James, but then stayed with the Blades all the way down to League One. In that time, his form went up and down more times than a West Brom fan, but he finally moved on to Hull City in 2012. He played 85 games for the Tigers, including top-flight football and breaking Blades' hearts in the FA Cup semi-final. The year after, he signed for Reading and had a steady few seasons in the Championship with the Royals, before being shipped off to Burton. And that's where he's currently playing his football, in Burton, under Nigel Clough and alongside John the Beard Brayford. Christian Narde, a player that was an absolute unknown to 99% of the Blades fans before 2006. Narde didn't get much of a chance to shine until Blades top goalscorer Rob Hulse broke his leg against Chelsea in March. However, he did score 3 goals in the back end of the season, and one of those goals has gone down in folklore. After one short season, instead of seeing if he could cut it in the Championship, Narde was moving on to Hearts in the Scottish Premier League and actually played a lot of games for them. However, since then, he's played for a lot of random teams, mostly in Scotland, But here they all are because I don't want to waste your time. But he's now at Annan Athletic in Scotland's League 2 at the age of 35. John Stead. John Stead was a valuable player for the Blades in the back end of the season and scored important goals as we beat West Ham, stole a point away at Charlton and nearly kept us up in the Premier League with his equalising goal in this game against Wigan. He soon moved on the season after and signed for Ipswich Town. His career started to decline then as he moved to Bristol City, Huddersfield, Oldham, Bradford, and then until last season he made 162 appearances for Notts County. He's now running around in a Harrogate Town shirt in the 5th tier of English football, but Steady will always be remembered for that guy who put 100% in every single game. And finally, the gaffer, Neil Warnock. Now, Warnock is very bittersweet for Blades fans. As a Blade myself, I think he did an excellent job for us, and he got us to the top division where a lot of managers couldn't. However, he's always struggled to manage teams in the Premier League, and he's got a lot of relegations on his CV, which probably tells you he's more suited to getting teams into the Premier League rather than keeping them there. He went on to manage Crystal Palace, QPR, Leeds, Palace again, QPR, Rotherham, and finally Cardiff. And he recently got him promoted to the Premier League and then brought him back down. However, going back to the Blades, Neil Warnock has done a few dubious things since leaving Bramall Lane. He had a huge bust-up with Kevin McCabe and Sean Bean when he left Bramall Lane. He also had a massive argument with one of his very, very good friends and ex-assistant manager, Kevin Blackwell. He also put his hat in the ring for the Wednesday job allegedly. And in more recent times, when Cardiff scored a late equaliser at Bramall Lane in 2018, he celebrated like he won the Euro Millions, which I think left a sour taste in Blades fans' mouths. But his record and time at Bramall Lane speaks for itself. So that's what happened to all the Blades players after the relegation to the Championship in 2007. And if you missed the Chris Wilder's first Blades 11, it will be on screen right now. So thanks for watching and stay good, Nick.